Hello, good morning, teachers and students. How are you all? I am R. Venkateswara Rao, School Student of English from SSRZPHS Bhimanapalli. Today, I have come up with another useful and helpful video lesson. It is SSC question number 26. I'll teach you with beautiful pictures and useful tips. Enjoy the lesson. Firstly, let's learn what is advice. Advice is a recommendation or suggestion given to someone on what they should do or how they should behave in a particular situation. It's an opinion or guidance, expertise, or knowledge about the issue or problem. There are 14 types of advice. They are formal advice, informal advice, solicited advice, unsolicited advice, professional advice, personal advice, financial advice, educational advice, spiritual advice, practical advice, general advice, specific advice, objective advice, subjective advice. Especially when it comes to SSC examination, we use the following words or expressions to express advice. Softening expressions. If I were you, I think you should. You might want to consider. It might be a good advice. Have you thought about? Direct expressions. You should. I recommend. I suggest. You ought to. You had better. Polite expressions. Would you like some advice? May I suggest? If you don't mind my saying so, I'd like to offer some advice. You might find it helpful. Formal expressions. It is advisable to. I strongly recommend. In my opinion, you should. It is essential. I urge you to. Informal expressions. Just a heads up. You might wanna try. I'll do it if I were you. Just saying, you could always. I'll give you some examples. Then you can understand how to do this advice in public examinations. You should start working on your project earlier to avoid last minute stress. You had better arrive on time for the interview if you want to make a good impression. You ought to take a break and rest your eyes every hour when studying. You should try to eat a balanced diet to stay healthy and focused. You had better check your email regularly for important updates from your teacher. You ought to practice your presentation several times before presenting it to the class. You should make to-do list to help you stay organized and manage your time effectively. You had better be careful when crossing the road, especially during peak hours. You ought to read the instructions carefully before attempting to solve the math problems. You should try to stay calm and focused during exams and remember to breathe deeply. Here I give you a tip. You should or you had better doubt. How to use you should and you had better and you ought to. You should is used for general advice or recommendations. You had better is used for stronger advice or warnings, implying that there may be negative consequences if the advice is not followed. You ought to is used for advice that is considered morally or ethically correct. Dear students, now let's do an exercise to understand advice usage in English SSC exam. You should start working on your project earlier to avoid last minute stress. You had better arrive on time for the interview if you want to make a good impression. You ought to take a break and rest your eyes every hour when studying. You should try to eat a balanced diet to stay healthy and focused. You had better check your email regularly for important updates from your teacher. You ought to practice your presentation several times before presenting it to the class. You should make a to-do list to help you stay organized and manage your time effectively. You had better be careful when crossing the road, especially during peak hours. You ought to read the instructions carefully before attempting to solve the math problems. You should try to stay calm and focused during exams and remember to breathe deeply. Now let's learn SCERT module question number 26 exercise. Take a glance at SCERT questions. Your friend is not taking the midday meal provided by the government at your school. Advise her to take a midday meal. Answer is, you should take the midday meal provided by the government. Your friend is coughing continuously. Advise him or her to seek medical attention. Answer. You should see a doctor. Your friend consumes a lot of junk food. Advise him, her to stop it to stay healthy. You should stop eating junk food to stay healthy. Your brother is working continuously without a break. Advise him to take care of his health. You should take care of your health. Your friend wastes a lot of water. Advise him, her not to do so. You should not waste a lot of water. Your sister does not turn off the lights. Advise her to turn off the lights before leaving. You should turn off the lights before leaving. Your friend does not respect elders. Advise him to respect elders. You ought to respect elders. Your friend speaks on the phone while driving. You should not speak on the phone while driving. Your sister postpones work. Advise her to complete work on time. You had better complete your work on time. Your brother keeps his room in a mess. Advise him to tidy up room. You should tidy up your room. Dear students, I think you have understood it well. We use you should for general advice or recommendations. You had better for stronger advice, warnings implying that there may be negative consequences if the advice is not followed. You ought to is used for advice that is considered morally or ethically correct. Follow carefully after reading the question whether to use you should, you had better, or you ought to. All the best. I'll come up with another useful video lesson. Do the following yourself and type the answers in the comments box. Don't forget to type the answers in the comments box.